A few miles up the PCT in those snowy mountains you see behind me here, Trek for Trevor's namesake and PCT hiker, Trevor Microsoft Layer, lost his life on a narrow and icy stretch of trail around mile marker 169.5 by Apache Peak. Now, he came prepared. He had a satellite communicator. He just had it turned off to save battery. He would turn it on periodically in order to send a message and tell everyone he was safe. But when he fell and succumbed to his injuries, he was with other hikers who were able to alert emergency services. But if that were you and you weren't with somebody and you didn't have this on, that could mean the difference between life and death. Now, my name is Chris Hazzard. I run a website called hikingguy.com and a YouTube channel. I've been using these for years. I've tried them all. I've reviewed them. I've interviewed dozens of people in search and rescue to find out best practices, not only from a user standpoint, but from a search and rescue standpoint. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how to pick the right satellite communicator, how to pick the right plan, and maybe more importantly, I'll tell you all of the kind of insider tricks and little tweaks to do to make sure that you're using this correctly and that you're safe with it. Because safety with one of these things is not just for you, it's for your family. It could mean safety for other people who don't have one of these that you call SOS as a good Samaritan. There's a lot of ways you can save people's lives or help with these satellite communicators. And overall, I think it's a good investment. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to be laying somewhere on the side of a hill without one of these things, wishing you had invested in one. That's the way I always think about it. Now, this video is brought to you by Trek for Trevor. Their goal is to get everyone out here hiking safely, whether you're doing a through hike or whether you're just hiking on the weekend or whatever it might be. Trek for Trevor is bringing in this video so that you can hike safely.
What's a satellite communicator? We're just talking about a device that can send messages back and forth over a satellite. You might be saying, well, what about my phone? My phone can do that now. Yes, it can, and it could be an alternative. It could also be a great way to supplement a satellite communicator. We'll talk about the differences and why you might want one over the other in a second. There is another option before we dive into satellite communicators that you might want to consider. It's called a PLB, or a personal locator beacon. Now, this is also satellite based. This has been around for a while. It's had tens of thousands of rescues under the belts of this system here that it uses. COSPAS SARSAT, it's called. But the idea is that you press the button, it gets a GPS fix of where you are. It sends your location to search and rescue responders, and they come to that location and find you and retrieve you. There is no two-way communication on this type of device. It's simply saying, I need help, get me out of here, and somebody will get you. Satellite communicator, on the other hand, it's a two-way conversation with a rescue personnel, and you can do things like maybe diagnose some kind of a medical condition. With this thing, you can't. This is just like, get me out of here now. You might be saying, why would I use this? Well, this doesn't have a subscription fee. You simply buy it, register it for free, and then use it. Put it in your pack, hit the button when you need it. But with the satellite communicators, you need a subscription. I'll talk about plans, or we'll go over plans, what might be the best for you in this video as well. Now, before I dive into which hardware you should consider, let's just talk about what a satellite communicator does, because they all do the same thing. Some of them don't do everything, and I'll share that with you in a second too. But we're talking about a communicator that sends messages back and forth, so text messages, sending them to other devices, sending them to people's cell phones in cellular range, sending them to emails, getting messages back. That's what it does. There's a variation of that called a check-in message, and that's kind of like a preset message where you're sending your location and a preset message to somebody that you've already determined, and you're usually just hitting a button saying, hey, I'm safe and this is my position. That's a check-in. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second, some strategies for using that. But there's SOS, and the SOS will usually go to a center that's set up for handling backcountry emergencies. So if you're out in the trail in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Sierras or something, they know how to handle that. They're not going to call the ambulance in Lone Pine. They're going to call people who do backcountry rescue. So you get that as part of this. There's also a feature called location sharing, where you could leave a breadcrumb trail that's all sent via satellite so that friends and family can follow along on a map and see exactly where you are. And then there's also weather reports, and weather reports are obviously handy, if you want to just plan the next day. I've used them on day hikes before when I'm not sure whether I should go to a peak because there might be thunderstorms. It's a handy thing to have, even if you don't use it all the time. So those are the features that we're talking about here. You might be asking yourself, why not a satellite phone? Some people carry satellite phones. Generally, they're heavier and the plans are expensive and the batteries don't last as long as something like this. So if you want to be able to talk in real time, a satellite phone might be the move. But for most people, the satellite communicator seems to be the best choice. Now, I test a ton of satellite communicators. I hike with them all the time. I'd say that Garmin inReach is the gold standard for these. Now, there's a few different models of inReach, and we'll get into that in a second. But really, why is this the best? Well, first of all, it uses the Iridium satellite network. The Iridium satellite network gives you 100% global coverage, so you can use this on the Appalachian Trail. You can use this in Antarctica. You can use this anywhere on the planet Earth, and it will work. And it's nice not having to worry about whether you're in a coverage zone or not. You can just get this and use it wherever you're hiking. The Garmin inReach models are also durable. They're built for the outdoors. They've got buttons that work with gloves, and they've got tactile feedback, so you can get a little click when you press it in and know that it's been clicked. They're also very durable. I've been using these for years. I've never broken them. I've definitely thrashed them. I probably could break it if I really tried, but just in everyday use, rubbing this against granite, sitting on it, dropping it, I've never broken a Garmin inReach. So they're very, very durable. They're also relatively lightweight depending on the model. And maybe the most important thing is the battery is designed to last a long time, especially when used as a satellite communicator. Now, if you're sending messages back nonstop, it's going to burn the battery down quicker than it would. Just like if you're on a phone call in cellular range and you're talking all day, it's going to burn the battery down. But for just general day-to-day use, you can generally get days, weeks out of these devices, which is great when you're on the trail. And battery life is a thing that you need to be conscious of. So that's the general functionality. That's generally what Garmin offers here. Again, you need a subscription for these, and there are a few flavors of Garmin inReach. The Garmin inReach Mini Series is this little guy. It's weighs around 100 grams, small, battery lasts a long time. It's got buttons on it. It's got a screen that's small but big enough to be able to use it effectively, see things like a weather report on there, do some limited navigation on here. You can do things like track back. But this, I think, is a great balance for most people. There's also a bigger unit called the Garmin GPS map. The 67i is the one right here. This is a little bit different because it's, number one, it's bigger. It's designed to fit in your palm of your hand. It's definitely heavier, maybe a little too heavy for a through hike. I'm not sure. That's the question that you need to decide. But the advantage is as this big screen. The big screen makes it easier to send messages back and forth, read them, easier to see a weather report. And I think most importantly is it has maps preloaded on here. So you can track your hikes on here and you can see where you are on a topographic map. So you can see where you are if you're on the PCT or not, or on a side trail. And you can also do on-the-fly routing. You don't need a cell phone for any of this. It all happens on this device. So if you're on the PCT and you want to bail out somewhere, you can just use this and get simple turn-by-turn directions, just like you would, say, on Google Maps or something, to get you back to wherever you need to go, whether it is a road, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a supermarket. It has all those points of interest in there. And this is the GPS Map 67. There's also a model that's very popular called the Garmin Messenger. This is a small puck-like device. It's also got really great battery life, but this is designed to be used mainly with your phone. It's got a screen on it and it's got some buttons, but they're small and it's limited. It's really clunky just to use a device on its own. But what you do is you pair it with the Garmin Messenger app on your phone, on Android or iOS, and then you can type messages out and kind of remote control it through your phone and Bluetooth. One of the other great things, you can also pair the Messenger app with the inReach Mini 2 or the GPS Map 67. You can send messages, check weather, do all kinds of different things. If you go to the Garmin Messenger app page, they have a whole list of other devices that the Messenger app is compatible with. Garmin makes other inReach devices too, but I think these three are the ones that really probably suit hikers and backpackers the best. And if you want to be able to send images and voice notes, there's a new version of the Messenger called the Messenger Plus. It's expensive and you get limited pictures and voice notes, but if that's something important to you, that's another option. And all these Garmin units also do all of that core functionality. So they have the SOS, messaging, location sharing, and weather reports on them. Now, there are other options if you don't want to get a Garmin. Another popular device is the Zoleo. The Zoleo doesn't have any screen on it. You can do an SOS and a check-in with the buttons that are on the device, and there's little LED lights that can give you some feedback on what's going on. But it's designed to be used primarily with your phone. And it's got some advantages. You can type longer messages with the Zoleo. But the big one for me is that you have a phone number for the device. So you get a Zoleo, that Zoleo has its own unique phone number, and that is essentially your user ID in the Zoleo app. And you can use the Zoleo app to communicate over Wi-Fi, satellite, and cellular. It will automatically switch. It'll look at the phone and see, do I have a cellular connection? If it does, it will send over that, and then you don't use any message points, incur any costs for that. It will send it over that to somebody else with the Messenger app. Or if it's on satellite, it will use the satellite. Now, Garmin has a version of this. The Messenger app will do the same thing, but the Garmin devices don't have their own phone number. The Garmin devices use your cell phone number as essentially a user ID. And it's confusing. And if I got into the whole thing here, your head would probably explode. So we're not going to do that. But just know that if you have a Zoleo, you can have a phone number with the Zoleo, use the Zoleo app. It'll automatically switch between them. You can kind of do that on the Garmin as well. But Zoleo, another option. There's another company called Spot. They offer satellite communicators. They've been around for quite a while, but I'd say Garmin inReach has eclipsed them over the years. This model is called the Spot X. It's got a little keyboard on it where you can type messages out. If that's what you're looking for, this is really the only model that does that. I've had mixed results with these in forest canopies. Sometimes the message goes through, sometimes it doesn't. For all of these things, you have to realize that this is a little piece of plastic and metal and circuit boards trying to communicate with a satellite, hundreds, sometimes thousands of feet above the Earth. So you got to kind of put it in perspective a little bit, but I have found that the Garmin inReach is a little bit more reliable. That said, I've had the Garmin inReach not work for me different times under blue skies, also places, on the Appalachian Trail, not work in tree canopy. So none of these are 100%, but generally the Garmin inReach seems to be the best. But if you want to spot with a keyboard, that's another option. There's also devices like the Motorola Defy and HMD Off-Grid. These are lightweight puck-type devices, less than 100 grams. If you're really looking to shave weight, this might be a good move for you. They have different pricing plans, and we'll talk about plans in a second, which might work best. But these are primarily messaging devices. These don't use low Earth orbit. They don't use Iridium or Globalstar. These use satellites that are 22,000 miles above the Earth, geostationary satellites. So a little bit different. I found that these generally send messages back and forth really fast, much faster than the Garmin inReach, which usually takes somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. But with these guys, the reliability isn't quite as much as it is on the Garmin inReach, and they also don't have worldwide coverage. But they could have a more affordable plan, could be a good option for you. All right, let's talk about cell phones, because more and more cell phones are going to have satellite capabilities. Right now is kind of the wild west of this, and things are going to change as we go down the road. But if you have an iPhone 14 or greater, it's satellite enabled, and you can send a satellite text message for free over that. Again, that might change by the time you're watching this, but right now you can. It's not bad. It's not bad. You have to connect to the satellite. It will burn the battery down a little bit, but you can text back and forth. And you can also dial 911 from your satellite, essentially trigger a emergency response from here. So if you have an iPhone and you don't want to have a satellite communicator and you understand the implications of that, which I'll cover in a second, a phone could be a good choice. A phone's also not an outdoor instrument. Phone can break, you can shatter the screen, the battery can run out quickly. If you're doing a long through hike, you probably have, a charging solution, battery backups. So you might need to call that into play. If there's an emergency situation, you're texting back and forth with emergency responders, but a phone could be a good option. Now, you don't necessarily need an iPhone. The Pixel 9 has satellite SOS that you can use. And T-Mobile and Starlink have hooked up to allow you to do text messages. You don't even need a special phone. It's really just sort of like a cell phone tower in the sky where you can send messages back and forth using your regular 5G or LTE phone. Now, these are good options, but I wouldn't risk my life on it. If I could afford a satellite communicator and a cell phone that has satellite, that's probably the best of both worlds. And the one crucial thing that the satellite or the cell phone doesn't have that a satellite communicator has is the location tracking. So that breadcrumb trail. And I'm going to tell you why that's going to be important in a second. But a cell phone is an option if you don't want to spend any money, and you have to have a cell phone, get one that's satellite enabled. It'll definitely increase your chances. There's definitely been rescues with the cell phones, but just know that it's not an outdoor instrument. And if you want the best tool for the job, a phone probably isn't it. So what do I recommend? I think for most people, a Garmin inReach Mini, this is a 2, maybe there's going to be a 3 by the time you see this, is the best bet. It's a great balance of weight, battery life, and functionality. You'll be able to send messages, get the SOS, share your location, your breadcrumb trail, and get weather. And you could do that all just using the little screen that's on here. You can just look at that little screen. You can use it all. The Garmin inReach Messenger, which is the little puck device, I don't find that easy to use, and I don't want a device that I really have to use the phone in order to use it effectively. You can use the Mini 2 effectively, and I think this is probably the best balance. You can get battery life for weeks on this inReach Mini 2. Now, if you really want the trails all loaded on a device that's not your phone, a rugged device, I think that 67i is a great choice. Battery life, again, lasts for a matter of weeks. You have all those maps preloaded on there. Again, it's a little clunky. It's not going to be as slick as a cell phone, but it's going to be able to get the job. And if you want to have all that navigation offline to be able to bail out to a hospital, to wherever you want to go, you can do that all on that device. So that'll work independent of your phone. The downside is it's not the lightest thing in the world, but you have to decide, where you want to spend your grams, what's more important to you in terms of safety or, weight, whatever it is, you can decide. But I'd go between the Mini 2 or the 67. All right, let's talk about plans. The deal is that once you buy the device, you have to buy a plan, just like buying a phone and buying a cellular subscription. Same idea here. I think if you're doing a long-term hike, like a through hike or multi-day hike, getting the middle package, the consumer standard, makes a lot of sense. It's $30 a month, so roughly $1 a day to use this. You get 150 messages for the month. So that's 5 messages a day over satellite. So if you're in cellular range or Wi-Fi range, the messages are free, but over satellite, 5 a day. And the way it works is you pay for the messages you send, and you also pay for the messages you receive. So 5 a day on that. You can send unlimited check-in messages. So check-in messages are the preset ones that have your location. You can pop those off as many times as you'd like to and just tell friends and family that you're okay and tell them where you are. So that's unlimited. Part of the message allotment is a weather report. So you can grab a weather report in there too. And then what's important, I think, to me is the location sharing. And on this middle plan, you get unlimited location sharing. These are the satellite sent breadcrumb trail points that your friends and family can look at and follow along with you on. Now, unlimited on this plan. And if you go down to the cheaper plan, which is $15 a month, you pay 10 cents each for them. So if you hike 10 hours a day and you do these at a 10-minute interval, it's going to cost you $6 a day to do it. Maybe the economics of your hike make this more practical, just paying for that. For day hikes, I think if you're just using these once a while, maybe like on a weekend hike, having this lower plan might make more sense. You just have to crunch the numbers yourself based on what you're doing. But I think for most people, if you have a Garmin inReach, this middle plan makes the most sense. If you go with the Zoleo, I think you have 2 options. I think the basic plan makes most sense if you're not going to be messaging back and forth all the time. It's $20 a month, but you have to do a $6 add-on for location sharing, bringing it up to $26 a month, which brings it close to the Garmin plan for $29 or $30 a month. So, if you really want a Zoleo, then this might be your best plan if you're not going to message. If you're looking at like plan versus plan, it might make sense just to get a Garmin. I think you probably have a better value with that middle plan on Garmin. And if you just want to text all the time and have a Zoleo and the number is important, you just want to be constantly connected, they have an unlimited plan, which is $50. You still have to add the $6 on for location sharing. And, that'll let you just text to your heart's content. But that's the deal for Zoleo. But again, for me, I think the inReach with that middle plan offers the best balance of everything for you as a thru hiker or long distance hiker. All right, so you have a device, you know what plan you want. Now it's a matter of setting it up. You need to be in cellular or data connection in order for this to happen, because you're gonna have to put your credit card in. You can't go out to the middle of nowhere and then activate it via satellite. That's not gonna work. You have to do this at home. Once you get through the setup and activation, you're going to want to do a couple things. First, you're going to need to put in emergency contacts. And the emergency contacts are the people who will be contacted in addition to emergency responders if you hit SOS. So if you hit SOS, Garmin's going to reach out to emergency response. They're also going to loop in these emergency contacts. And you're going to be able to not only message back and forth with the emergency responders and Garmin, but also with these people on the contact list. And just so you know, messages during an SOS don't count towards your allotment. So emergency contacts is first. The other thing you're going to want to do in the SOS is fill out the emergency notes. This gives rescuers some information about you. So if you have any medications you're on or medical conditions, this is a good place for it. Or just leaving some general information about who you are, how prepared you are, and maybe what hike you're doing is going to be helpful here as well. Then you're going to go in and set up your regular contacts. So who do I want to be sending messages back and forth to? You can put them in there. You can even put other people's Garmin inReaches in there. So if there's people who you're hiking with, you can add them to this. You have to use their Garmin inReach email address to do that, but that will allow you to send messages from one inReach to another inReach, which could be a very powerful thing, especially if you're hiking with a group or hiking family. Contacts. Next, if you go into messages, you can set up your quick text. And these are really just shortcuts, so you don't have to type all of these things out. And this is what I use. You can really put in whatever you want. And then lastly is setting up your check-ins. The first thing you're going to do is make sure that location is added to your messages when you send them. You can do that in here. That will send a location link when you send out any of these messages. And in addition to the message that you've written, somebody can just click on this link and see exactly where it was sent from. So that's very powerful. Make sure you have that enabled. Doesn't cost anything extra on a message to do that. It's just part of the message. The actual text of a check-in message is predetermined by Garmin, and it is these three messages. You can tell people you're okay. You can start and stop, which I think works fairly well. If you have an older inReach account or professional account, you can modify these. The important thing to note is that you can't change them in the field, so you have to specify everything here. And the important part is specifying who's going to get these check-in messages. And all you have to do is add your contacts here. The other thing that's helpful is to turn on MapShare. MapShare is a public map page where people can essentially track you, see where you are, people being friends and family, whoever it might be, but you can turn it on and off. If you go into settings, you can give it a distinct name, you can password protect it. You can also allow map users to send you messages, and you can allow map viewers to locate you. So if you have people who are maybe at home and want to follow along, they can communicate with you through this. What it looks like for a family member is they just type in your password, and you can make this public too if you're a celeb or influencer. So when somebody logs on to this, they can go and they can see your track, they can follow your track, they can see where you've sent check-in messages. So here's a little icon for a message. And then one of the neat things is whoever has access to this can potentially send you a message and check in on you. They can do that. They can also locate you, request location. And the way it works is that it's not always on, but it will check at a minimum every hour for new messages, and you can do a manual message check as well. But it's a neat way for friends and family to stay in touch. You just need to turn this on. This is called MapShare. Once you did your setup, you're going to want to make sure that syncs with your phone. That means if you did it on the website, you go into the Messenger app, sync with Messenger with the website, and then sync with your phone. And then you're going to want to obviously take it out on the trail and try it out before you go. You don't have to test the SOS. You can do a test of the SOS. You fill out a form with Garmin, and it will be a test, where you contact emergency response. But I think just sending some test messages back and forth to your friends and family probably makes sense in terms of getting to use it. So that's the whole setup. Here's how you use it when you're out on the trail. First of all, you're going to want to leave this on all the time when you're moving out on the trail. When you're in the tent at night, I think it's okay to turn this off and save some battery. But when you're moving, you're stopped, you're going to want to have it on. And this is a problem that, Trevor turned it off because he wanted to save battery life. But if he was alone and he had tracking on, which I'll explain to you in a second, he could have been found by leaving this on and going with tracking. So leave it on. You're also going to want to attach it to ideally your person. So here's the thing. If you fall and you lose your pack, and this is clipped onto your backpack up here, then you potentially lose the inReach as well, and you can't use it. If it's clipped onto your pants or your shirt or something that's not on your backpack, then if you lose your pack, like let's say you're crossing a stream and the pack gets caught off you, then you can still use it. I know that's not always practical for people, but ideally it's on your person, on your clothes, on your body. Now there's a neat trick that you can do if you have a Garmin watch with you. If you have a Garmin watch, a lot of them allow you to pair the watch with the inReach unit, and then you can remote control it from your watch. So if for some reason your pack does fall off and it's on your pack and it's within range, now we're not talking hundreds of feet, but we're talking 10, 15, 20 feet, you can then trigger an SOS. You can do preset messages, do whatever you need to do using your watch. And this I found is convenient when I just want to, send a message or preset from a hike. I can just easily do it from the watch as I go. But that's another option if you have a Garmin watch. The Garmin Instinct 3 is a good one. It's solar powered. It connects with this, but there's a lot of different Garmin watches that you can do this with. Now, using your communicator is relatively easy. You just go through the menu. There's messages, there's tracking, there's navigation, and what that is will depend on your device, weather, and then message check. The default for a message check is every hour unless you've just sent a message, and then it will continue to listen for replies for 10 minutes. But you can always manually check this message check here. If you want to send a message, pretty straightforward. You just go into this menu, hit new message, and then you can choose your recipients. These are the contacts that we did earlier. Then you can type a message out, or you can use one of your quick text messages that you specified earlier on there. And then once it's in, you just hit send and it goes. And sending a preset message or a check-in is similar. You just go to check-in, choose the check-in number that you want to send, and then hit send and it will go out. Now, this is a messaging strategy that I think works for most people. It involves the check-ins, which, remember, don't cost anything towards your message allotment. You can send an unlimited amount of these. When you start the hike in the morning, send the check-in for starting. Lunch break, send a check-in that you're okay. When you find a campsite and you shut down for the night, send us one that you're ending your day. And I think that works pretty well. And obviously, if you need to have a discussion, then you can use your custom messages or quick text messages. But I think for most cases, just a normal day of hiking, eating, camping, that's going to do it for you. All right, let's talk about location, because this is an important one. Now, the location feature allows you to leave a breadcrumb trail sent via satellite over time, so that friends and family who have a link to your map page can follow along. Now, the first thing to do if you want to use this is go into your accounts and make sure that this is enabled. Get the URL for it. You can change it sometimes. You can password protect it. You can do different things, but share this with your friends and family who are following along. This URL will stay the same for the whole time, so you don't have to proactively keep sending this URL to people. Friends and family can just come here at any time and check in and see where you are. Now, on your settings on your device, if you go into tracking, there's something called a send interval or a move interval. This is how many times that you will send a track point off, and you can make it longer and that will save the battery, or you can make it shorter and that will give you more fidelity on the track. So here's what I recommend. I recommend choosing a 10-minute interval. Why 10 minutes? Well, this is a good balance of battery drain and also fidelity. So in 10 minutes, that means that rescuers can follow this breadcrumb trail and find you within a 10-minute walk. So if you've fallen and you're maybe unconscious, maybe you have a heart attack, stroke, you hit your head, you fell off the side of the trail, narrow trail, icy trail, and you lost your inReach or you're unconscious, rescuers will be able to get relatively close to you. I think a 10-minute radius is a lot different than a 30-minute radius. And obviously helps your chances of getting rescued. Just to clarify, once you start location tracking, you don't have to do anything else. It'll automatically just send those every 10 minutes or whatever interval you take. Another bonus is that when it sends a location point, it will also check for new messages. So you don't necessarily have to wait an hour for a new message to come in. Sends a track point, checks for new messages, so you'll get them every 10 minutes or so if somebody's sending them. You can manually start tracking on the menu here, or you can toggle this little thing on for auto track, and it will start tracking you automatically whenever the device is on. If you don't have unlimited track points, putting auto track on could cost you a couple bucks if you forget that it's on. So just know that. But if you have the unlimited plan, the medium plan, you'll be okay. You can just turn this on and it will always be tracking you. And again, these don't cost anything. So that's tracking. I think it's a very, very important feature to have. And you can even do things that are a little more jazzy, a little more fancy. Now, if you have a professional account, which costs a little bit more money, you can hook your inReach up to CalTopo. If you're not familiar with CalTopo, it is a mapping platform where you can really customize all kinds of aspects of your map. So if you wanted to, you could take the whole PCT, take that GPX file, bring it into CalTopo, mark out waypoints for things like resupply points, where you're going to take zeros, whatever it might be. CalTopo also has has a mobile app with offline maps. If you pay, I think, $20 a year, you can hook your inReach up to this, and now your friends and family can go on there and see your progress along your planned route. They could see all kinds of things like your resupply spots, and you can get really rich with the data. And you need a professional account to do this. I believe it's going to cost you about $5 more a month. But if something like this interests you, sign up for the professional middle account, and then follow. I'll put a link to the instructions on how to set this up on CalTopo underneath. But that, I think, is a really powerful combination in terms of tracking and planning and having people being able to see where you are at the time. Now, weather reports are pretty self-explanatory. They definitely can come in handy. One of the features that's neat is that you can change the location. So you don't have to get a report for where you are, but you could get a report for where you're going. So you can look ahead, get a report for maybe a higher altitude point along the way, and see what the conditions are there and make a choice on whether you're going to go there or not, depending on what those, what the report says. So that's the weather report. Definitely handy to have. The other thing I would do is pair your device with the Garmin Explore app. Remember the Garmin Messenger app, it's a little bit of a soup here, but the Messenger app is the one for sending messages back and forth. The Explore app is the one for navigation. Not all of them work with the Explore app, but the inReach Mini does for sure, and so does the 67. Download the Explore app, download the offline maps, which is a free function when you use this. And now you're going to have a backup to your Far Out app. So if for some reason the Far Out app crashes and doesn't open up, here you have a backup for it, and you can at least navigate, get to somewhere safe if you need to. So that's the Garmin Explore app. All right, when do you hit SOS on this thing? I think there's a lot of confusion around here. I've interviewed dozens and dozens of people in search and rescue, from boots on the ground to national coordinators for the Coast Guard. And here's the deal. Here's what I get across the board. If you need help, ask for help. It's better to ask for help sooner rather than later. I've heard stories about when people wait and they lose their lives. It's definitely a real thing. Ask for help when you need for help. And when do you need help? When you're unsure of a safe outcome. So if you're not sure whether this wildfire is going to be, coming your way and burn you up, you're not sure whether you fell on your head and you're okay to go, you're not sure whether a chest pain is a heart attack or, a bad burrito you ate, whatever it is, ask. Here's the thing, the advantage of a satellite communicator that does two-way texting. You can talk to Garmin Response, you can talk to emergency personnel about the situation and get some insight. So just hitting the SOS button doesn't mean a helicopter is going to be there, to take you away. It could mean you get evacuation instructions on how to self-evacuate. It could mean you get tips on how to deal with the medical condition. There's a lot of different options here. So if you think you need help, just hit the SOS button. And again, The messages you send during SOS don't count towards your allotment. I think this is also a good time to talk about rescue insurance. Now, Garmin offers something called SAR 100. It's a rescue insurance in case there's a charge. This will cover that, and there's a deductible. It's insurance. It's important to know that most rescues here in the United States, at least, and I think around the world as well, are free of charge to the person who's asking for it. So a lot of most rescues are done with a heavy volunteer force in conjunction with like a park service or a sheriff's department, but usually it's going to be free to you. Not always the case. And even in an area where it's free, it's not always free. And this is where the wrinkle is, right? Let's say you're at a national park and you hit the SOS button and they decide you need a helicopter out of there. But let's say the one helicopter that's assigned to the park, and not all parks have helicopters, but there is one there maybe, it's dealing with something that's more critical, or it's, not working, whatever it might be. The Park Service, the emergency responders might engage a private aircraft to come get you. Like, what if you need an air ambulance with an air nurse on it, with the medical personnel to bring you to a medical center because you have something so severe? In that case, it's a private air ambulance and you might be charged for it. So you might want to opt in to this Garmin SAR 100 insurance. There's also something called Overwatch and Rescue, which is not insurance. It's like a AAA for the outdoors plan. And with that, you don't pay anything. With the Garmin one, you pay for the bill. There's a deductible, and then they reimburse you just like you would with regular insurance. With Overwatch and Rescue, it's like AAA, like getting a flat. You don't pay them anything. They come and fix the flat, and that's it. Same thing with Overwatch and Rescue. You get a subscription for the year. You get rescued. If it's an air ambulance or there's a cost involved, you fill out a form on their website, you send them the bill, and they pay for it. And they also do things like if you're overseas, let's say, they will fly a family member out to be with you, or they'll bring you to a medical center, closer to your home if the one where you are can't handle your situation. If you're, they'll pick up the car at the trailhead. It's really like a well thought out package, and that's called Overwatch and Rescue. And if you do hit the button and you need a rescue, just know that it's not like getting an ambulance in a city somewhere. It's going to take a long time. You might be asked to move somewhere where an aircraft can get to you. Expect it to be a matter of hours, if not days, depending on the weather and the resources available. Rescue will come. It obviously just takes a little bit longer when you're out in the backcountry. All right, let's wrap up with cell phones, because cell phones are really the future of kind of where all of this is going. More and more cell phones will have satellite capabilities as time moves on. And again, it's not an outdoor instrument. It's easy to break, easy to crack the screen, not as bad as it was maybe a few years ago, definitely more durable. Battery doesn't last as long, but I know for a lot of folks, you're using this for navigation, maybe your Kindle's on here, podcasts, music, and the satellite, just having that on there makes sense. And maybe you just bring a bigger battery pack to do that, but just know you can't do that location tracking, at least right now, with the cell phone. My thing would be to get a inReach with, this is what I do now actually, get an inReach with the middle plan, turn location tracking on whenever you're going. And then if you want to just casually send some messages, I have the iPhone. It's much easier to do that on the iPhone. I'll just fire this up, send some messages if my battery's looking okay, and go back and forth that way, and save this really for emergencies or doing things like the weather. I think having these two things gives you redundancy in terms of satellite communication, gives you redundancy in terms of navigation, and it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You can also navigate with your Garmin inReach Mini or 67, and that's like a whole other topic, but having two of these devices gives you a tremendous amount of redundancy, and I think can handle pretty much anything that the outdoors could throw at you in terms of emergencies and what you might need. So phone and inReach, probably the best way to go.
If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Trek for Trevor or myself will do our best to answer them. Yeah, guys, hopefully you found this video helpful. Stay safe and enjoy the trails.